Greetings, Ranger fans, and welcome to another edition of Database Rangers Power Reviews, where I will be looking back on all the classic episodes of Database Rangers Power Reviews as we count down the big 100 weeks to the final episode coming next year, which is looking increasingly like we're actually going to hit that target, which is amazing. 93 is obviously still running behind schedule because I'm still working to arrange an appropriate time with my one remaining actor who I need to film a few pickup shots with. But while episode 94 is also a little stalled out because I am waiting on something else for that, I did manage to find a good lead on recovering some lost footage for 94 so that I can actually start making progress on 94 again. And so in the meantime, I've been working on editing 95. That's been moving along fairly smoothly. So I've been making good progress on that. And this week, I actually managed to get in touch with a number of my actors who have actually moved out of state over the years and are actually looking at visiting the area again this summer so that they'll be able to take part in the final episodes, which is fantastic. So that was something I was definitely a little nervous about, but it is looking like the actors I was hoping to be able to get back for the final episodes actually will be able to return, which would be great, and I'm really looking forward to it. And it just sort of reinforces how I feel like a lot of people are really rooting for us to make it through to the end of this series. So I'm really looking forward to filming those final scenes this summer. So welcome to everyone already. Good evening, Jenny, Jalal, Sean, Scott, Lex. It is great to see all of you. Yes, Sean, that was actually what I was referring to with the camera issue. I had some footage that was still on the original camera, audio primarily. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to recover that audio, but it is looking like I may actually be able to get that fixed. I'm just waiting on an adapter to arrive, and hopefully that'll allow me to access the footage. So yeah, Lex, yeah, I read up top. Sorry that you've had a rough day. Hopefully I'm able to lift your spirits a bit. Welcome Dan, welcome Kevin. Yeah, I'm this episode we got coming up tonight was very much a turning point. I mean, there were always a bunch of little turning points throughout Power Reviews. Obviously, episode 8, we had the turning point of whether or not Dr. K is real. Then later we had in episode 20 the turning point of all the characters who had been introduced over the course of the first 20 episodes all meeting together for the first time, with the exception of Dr. K, obviously, with her status as a real person still in flux. Welcome, Sonic fan. And then we've been having this slow build-up throughout these last few episodes up to this next turning point, which, you know, is a turning point for Megaforce as well, because this is their introduction for their 6th Ranger. I never think of Robo Knight as a 6th Ranger, but I recognize that he fills the role for the season. And obviously he had a major impact on the rest of the series moving forward. And this episode will kind of shift gears for Database for the next few. So I'd say we can just jump right into this, but as always, let's not forget our 3 equally non-controversial phrases that we should all be able to agree should not be considered controversial to say in this day and age, all on equal standing. So number 1, say it with me, chat, Black Lives Matter. Number 2, say it with me, chat, fascism is bad. And number 3, say it with me, chat, superheroes are fun. These are all things we should be able to say in our day-to-day lives without anyone looking twice. Now, speaking of looking twice, let's take our look back on episode 27 of Database Rangers Power Reviews, our review of Power Rangers Megaforce Episode 8, Robo Knight. And go.
Previously on Power Review. Borrow that camera.
Do I exist?
Yep.
Doesn't matter.
All the little plot points kind of coming to a head.
If there's anything I can do to make it up to you, you make sure to let me know.
And that was really something that I felt very good about this run of episodes. That it was just that slow, steady building as I just kept layering on little hints so that they could pay off.
And now, Database Rangers Power Review.
There were
Greetings, Ranger fans.
Salutations.
Yeah.
And welcome to Power Review.
20 episodes of DRPR that were pre-samurai subjects after Night After Night.
Well, I figured I would be on the safe side, so no one asks why I'm talking to thin air. Just in
Not
case.
quite sure. I need to think about it. Oh,
And when did you get a phone?
I've always had one. It's just no one's ever called me.
oh man.
Hello.
Hey, ma'am.
How did you get my number?
Internet? Believe it or not, there aren't too many database rangers out there. And even fewer of them trying to publish a book on children's television.
Fair enough.
I like that I have a reason for why my phone number is readily available. Oh, and there is our one and only appearance of our sadly departed Trixie.
Yup.
Trixie was such a sweetheart. We
What was I
sadly
supposed to
never
Sorry, I know that all your
acknowledged
stuff is here and your apartment's still being worked on by
that Mayo had a second cat.
But my friend from the 17th
I didn't feel like it could work.
But has been living here the whole time you were. Just so happened to crack open your concealed lockbox and find your multiple passports, confidential documents, and psychological profile on me. And the two of us just don't feel comfortable with you staying here any longer.
This really does highlight just how much little bits of plot have been have been unveiled at this point. Even though it's still very much a slice of life style series.
And was holding onto the passports for some traveling buddies.
Then why were all the pictures exactly the same?
Identical quintuplet brothers.
With completely different names?
Yeah, they pulling out. I don't know. Let's just
I love how hard Database tries for his life to be normal. He really does. He's not a normal person,
take a look at what happened last time.
but he tries so hard to ignore the absurdities of his life for so long.
You mean the ultra sacred Megazord?
That title is
Yeah.
highly contentious.
Whatever. We don't have time for this. Let's take a look at episode 8
This is true,
of
Scott.
Power Rangers Megaforce, Robo Knight.
We begin with a scholastic rural excursion led by the Rangers science instructor. As the students begin to select their personal study buddies, Megaforce Black immediately sets his sights on Megaforce Yellow, much to the
Because-
dismay of all parties standing between them, including their science instructor, who becomes
This
so
was
frustrated that he gives himself a concussion.
Jake's awkwardness here really does play into people.
Meanwhile, Admiral Malcor discovers
Kay
a
is
pair of
just
mutants
so
down
brutal
on
on
Earth
these
that
episodes.
he thinks will be a
But yeah, those little moments kind of highlight how Jake was being set up to be the Green Ranger the following season, even though it was not handled smoothly at all.
Talk to them, but yeah, I have no follow-up for that.
As Megaforce
Yeah,
Rangers
that-
Blue and Pink discuss the minor inconveniences
Megaforce, considering that it crammed 50 episodes into only 20.
Except for an episode
Um,
1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, but hey, who's counting?
They happen
Great.
upon an old factory that
Um,
had been completely ignored by the
But it's
The what? Environmental Protection Agency.
I'm a dad.
Look, I'm a man on a big TV. Just listen. No, it takes a
nice
second
Simpsons.
to
I
careful
forgot that I had a
analyze
Simpsons movie
later,
reference in this.
before they are both summoned by the
Um,
sound of nearby screams.
But
They hurry
yes,
to the
this
site
this
of the
um
motion and find a pair of footprints.
this season, for whatever reason, had so much footage recycling
Mr.
for a
Burroughs
season
don't appreciate
that
it. He insists they all return to the bus, but Troy is
that was
furious.
that was cramming so many Sentai episodes into such a short Power Rangers season. So it's so weird they keep recycling the same footage for Malcor and Vrock.
Any self-respecting Sasquatch would have wallowed in the mud to cool their fur and left a trail of dirt and grime in their wake. What?
I was just imagining what it must be like inside that brain of yours. It must be fascinating. We are introduced to the
I forgot that I had that line. And that line just makes me so happy considering we actually did get to see the inside of Database Ranger's head in episode 44. Also, the toxic mutants
Did he just say his name was Rock?
are...
Yeah. Don't tell me you still thought they were two different characters.
No, I came to terms with Rock and B-Rock being the same guy a while ago. I'm just
And
amazed that we finally heard him pronounce his own name. Rock.
That was such a weird thing for Megaforce as well. They played keep away with the character names so much.
The Rangers study a screensaver.
We didn't know how to pronounce Rock. The two toxic mutants, Biggs and Bluefur, don't get named until like their 7th episode. It's ridiculous.
They were toxic chemicals. Are you planning on doing anything with them? Taking them to the EPA, the authorities? Anyone? No? Just going to sit around complaining about how bad pollution is?
The mutants also just
Keep up the good work.
made no real... They were just introduced so inorganically. They were never given proper names. They had nothing to do with the rest of the plot. They just come in, and they're just a new set of monster creators.
Interrupted though when Gosei summons the Rangers to face off against the mutant's monster buddy, Hisser. Hey, wait! I've seen that symbol before.
You mean on the other two mutants?
No, I mean yes. Before.
This is also...
Burley's conspiracy wall.
It's also such a missed opportunity. I don't know why they went through the trouble of giving him that little set dressing detail.
You're right. We saw it on B-Rock board
and
before he met the mutants or knew that they existed.
Yeah, this is again. It's so sad. There were so many opportunities for them to actually tie it together to the rest of the season. And to Mr. Burley having actual purpose would have been great. And then he just kind of vanishes for so much of this run.
Let me sum things up. The mutants are made of toxic waste. They hate being made of toxic waste. They hate humans for making toxic waste.
Oh my goodness. The motivations of the mutants were such a convoluted disaster of non-logic.
And make them stronger, even though they hate it. I think.
You should know that doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't matter. Let's just keep on moving. So the Rangers split up, with Noah taking on Hisser, Jake and Gia taking on.
I do like some of the interesting designs with the toxic mutants.
The blobby one. They still haven't introduced themselves, have they?
No, they have not. Regrettably, the divine efforts of the Rangers.
Yeah, I do like the idea of he's a Bigfoot. The other one is a chupacabra. But it's just it's so frustrating.
Actually, that's toxic waste.
But it looks like they're covered in
toxic waste. Hisser plays reverse whack-a-mole against the Rangers. But before the mutants can finish them off, a shining ball of light comes to their rescue.
And then
is it Omega Ranger? The lights of
Robo Knight comes out of nowhere in this plot. Like the introduction of Robo Knight is so poorly handled. Like he literally comes out of nowhere for no reason. And there are things about my headcanons for Megaforce that I still can't actually even go into yet. But yeah, it's so strange that Power Reviews has ended up actually become so centered around Megaforce and Super Megaforce in so many respects.
Why is the snake a car?
I have no idea.
Gizmo Duck then surprises everyone by pulling
I feel like we cracked up doing that bit, because that was just such a funny bit to do. The snake is a car. Why is the snake a car?
Although I'm fairly certain that these rocks were already there to begin with, I'm sure that the monster appreciates the unsolicited exposition. The creature immediately responds
This is
by
so
throwing
weird.
a rock at it.
This
It
whole
shudders,
scene is
and I
so
feel like
weird.
I'm the one receiving the concussion. After some oddly effective
I
spinning
had
around,
genuinely
the
forgotten
monster
just
scores
how
with a nice power charge victory strike.
how
Before
messy
returning back to
Megaforce
Newton,
got.
and being congratulated by the Rangers.
I didn't know Zords could turn into robots.
Once Robo Knight showed up. I startled MJ so hard when I burst out laughing for this.
Okay. One more time. I didn't know Zords could turn into robots. Okay, I'm good. Who wrote this anyway?
It's such a weird thing.
Isn't that the same guy?
Also, I feel bad for calling out Mark Handler.
You, sir, have a definite future at trolling. So Robo Knight rejects Troy's
he's the
hand
only writer that I feel like I've actively made fun of.
So rather than
And I do feel bad for making fun of him. It's just his episodes had some of the most brain-breaking moments, and I didn't know what to make of it.
No idea. It's here that Gosei finally explains that he created Robo Knight centuries ago to lie in wait as a dormant protector of the Earth.
But after such a long hibernation, it appears he has lost some of his memory.
What?
Robo Knight's computer brain clearly doesn't recall.
Robo Knight is so weird.
What?
Robo Knight is a highly
Yeah.
complex artificially
Yeah, Dr. K is not okay with Robo Knight.
as an ally. That is your challenge.
What?
And that's the end of our episode. So,
Robo Knight makes Dr. K so angry.
The chemistry between Jake and Gia
And it felt so appropriate, considering obviously her background with artificial intelligences.
In the locker scene, which neatly mirrors the previous locker scene episode 2. And the little
But yeah,
smiles of both this
I'm-
and the previous
This
episode.
is me trying to find
She's warming up to his hand.
find good stuff in
Or,
this
as Mr. Urkel
episode.
would say,
Yeah, and that's very true. That is exactly what they were trying for in this.
unfortunately, the chemistry of the cast during the civilian bits isn't enough to save the rest of this episode.
Most certainly not.
Did
Yeah.
you have something to add?
Oh, Dr. K.
Please continue.
Dr. K is holding back right now.
The introduction of Robo Knight and the mutants, who are reportedly named Blooper and Biggs, by the way,
Yep.
just feels so out of nowhere and mishandled that much of the story is a jumbled
This is the point where I really started struggling to find good things to say about Megaforce, and and it's
Plenty of
it's
questions.
rough to be in that situation where you're trying to be even-handed,
Finish your point.
and you're just struggling so hard.
Episode has got to be the environmental message, or lack thereof. I don't think I've ever heard the word environment tossed around so many times
Yeah.
without one single suggestion on how to improve things. It basically just
Yeah,
asks
Megaforce
you,
is definitely kind of
pollute the
an
planet.
old shame.
Someone should probably do something about that.
I mean, I don't know how Hasbro feels about it. I don't know if Hasbro has any particular feelings about certain seasons outside of knowing which ones are more popular.
Without any form of safety measure. Even Mighty Morphin
But yeah.
handled environmentalism better than this.
Oh,
Just
this is
take a look at the third episode. Kimberly and Trini at least made an effort to petition for the toxic waste dump.
and yeah, that's
Sure, it was actually created
It's-
by Rita, and they never.
you know, I do actually like it when
Old factory closed down years ago, never cleaned up,
oh
and
man,
is somehow still creating pollution. Rita Repulsa is responsible for the toxic mutants. This makes a scary amount of sense.
I actually
I think I need a moment to process this.
I'd forgotten that I established that headcanon. I still love that headcanon.
I guess so.
So there's nothing else you need to criticize.
Nothing immediately comes to mind.
How about the fact that this is blatant propaganda?
But I just brought up the environmentalism.
Not the environmentalism. I'm talking about the absurd glorification of a rogue artificial intelligence with no respect respect for humanity. Not only
Yep.
rejecting the Ranger series operators as allies, but outright
This-
planting them in their
This fits so well into Kay's character.
Obviously faulty programming.
Um,
They hailed this
for
monstrosity
me-
as a hero, and
to-
are told
to
leap
go in-
over with the power of
For her to just go off on this.
obscene.
I was hoping that there would be a good
This series has
a
already
good
insulted my
trigger
sense of
in this
self-intelligence,
episode
but this
to-
is an insult
to
humanity
upset
itself.
Dr.
I
K,
will not stand for
and
this.
it ended up being so much more effective than anything else.
Just a show.
Just a show.
And we've just broken away from the
Had any actual involvement with the Ranger series
from
operators.
the review angles. You can see the camera angles have now changed. It's no longer a review
You still
anymore.
haven't made up your mind, have you?
I told you, it doesn't matter.
It does matter. It matters how you perceive this
Yep.
reality.
It's just,
What?
no one else has ever seen you.
Maybe I don't want to be seen.
No one is that good.
I am.
Well, how do you explain why you and Mayo look exactly the same?
I'm developing a theory on that.
Yeah,
How about the big
Dr.
one?
K
How
doesn't
did we meet?
know.
And
And here we go.
why can't I remember it?
I wish
And
I
there's
knew.
that big
You mean
question.
You don't know?
The big question's finally,
I have a
gotten
better
out
question
there.
for you, though.
Oh,
and
yeah?
now
Yes. What can
we
you
crack the
remember
show
from before
wide
we
open.
met? Can you remember anything from before we met?
This
I think-
conversation.
Of course, I've got 20 years of Power Rangers knowledge in my head.
Anything not about Ranger series operators? Anything that can't be gleaned from social media?
I love this.
Anything about your own life?
I love
Yeah,
I love how this just totally breaks the perception of the character.
I told you. I ran a background check, and I found nothing. No criminal record.
Yeah.
No school record. No legal record whatsoever that anyone named Database Ranger has ever existed.
No. You're trying to confuse me. You're the one.
That doesn't exist? No, I'm not trying to confuse you. I've just gotten tired of waiting for you to wake up. Maybe you're right. Maybe you should worry a little bit less about whether or not I'm real, and a little bit more about
And
yourself.
then after she throws that bombshell,
Jay,
she's gone.
is everything all right, Mr. Ranger? Did you see? No, of course you didn't. I'm fine. I just
And now
need to find someone.
he's just having complete and utter meltdown over his whole sense of reality.
Hey, is that? Oh, hi, Mayo. Hi. Guy. Did either of you see anyone run out the door just now?
No. Database?
Yeah.
Are you okay?
And that
I don't
little
know.
moment is he's just so freaked out over everything.
What?
And that was the first big cliffhanger of the show, where we just sort of cracked everything wide open in terms of what the show was about. Like we'd been kind of teasing that for so long, the whole idea of, well, does Dr. K exist or not? I don't know. Is this guy crazy or not? And now, it kind of kept the focus on a few little things. You know, what's the deal with Guy? Kind of brought us away from the does Dr. K exist question. And this one brings us not only right back to that, but into the question that we never knew to ask, which is, who is Database Ranger? Because so often, these characters in these review shows, like maybe they'll have a backstory, maybe they won't, but it's usually just, okay, this is just the author avatar. It's just a guy. And whatever they were doing before the show, you assume is kind of the same thing they've always been doing. Just, enjoying the show, being a nerd. And then this was the first episode to actually suggest that, no, there's more to it than that. There's more to this character than that. It's just that even he doesn't remember what it was before he was doing this show. And that's something that I really enjoyed playing with, and I can't think of too many examples of it popping up in other series, whether web series or TV shows, where it's pitched as our introduction to the character was basically the character's introduction to themselves, and not fully. He obviously knew a little bit about his life from before they started doing the show, but only a little bit, because it was him setting up and starting to do the show. The earliest memory that we show him having is borrowing the camera from Guy, which in universe, considering the way the camera works, is in and of itself a little bit of a hint that there's something more going on, because we have such a strong fourth wall in play where everything acknowledges that the camera exists, including a scene where he's holding the camera. And that's just a lot of fun. And yeah, I really do. Also, yeah, Emmanuel, I've been seeing you making all these comments in here. I haven't been commenting on them because they've been coming so fast. I haven't been able to go through them. And I mean, when it comes to plot holes, it's not a matter of whether or not you of whether or not you can come up with explanations. It usually comes down to whether the show requires some level of independent conjecture in order to be internally coherent. And that's really the biggest issue with Megaforce, is that or one of the big issues with Megaforce, is that, yeah, we can fill in the plot holes. We could always fill in the plot holes with our own explanations. That's what a big chunk of this show is. But that doesn't make them not there. That doesn't make them not, we wouldn't be coming up with fixes if there wasn't something to fix. And to a certain extent, every plot has holes in it, whether intentionally or unintentionally. A story is, to a certain extent, shaped by what's not there, because you're always making a choice between what to show and what not to show. It's just a matter of whether what you choose not to show is something that would have made what you're showing make sense. But yeah, I do have some more headcanons regarding Megaforce that will continue to be unveiled as Power Reviews continues. Megaforce we've covered from running from episode 20 to episode 80 in this show. So it is, to a certain extent, still fairly central to the plot, which I never would have thought that, so many years later I would be still working on tying up some plot threads connecting to Megaforce, just because Megaforce is now so long ago, as is so much of this show. But yeah, I felt really good about that whole final sequence. It was something that I'd been building up to for a while, and I felt like it emerged organically between the characters. Like there was a real sense of dread, and uncertainty in those final moments. The fun little bit of how just that little quirk of dialogue that, when you ask someone if they're okay, and you just kind of, abbreviate a little bit to say, "You okay?" And how, for database that has such a different context than it would for a normal person. I felt really good about, like, the close-up on my eyes there. I felt like I got... Because that's one of the tricky things with filming a series where you're, both the writer, where you're the writer, producer, director, and the main character, is that it is tricky a lot of the times to get the right shots that you're aiming for. And I felt really good that I managed to get that shot of my eyes, just that little flicker of widening, because, that's me, like, lining up a camera super close to my eye and trying not to look at the camera and trying to but still having my eye properly in frame, and it just it took a bit of practice to get right. And all those little things like the perfect timing on the doorknob turning before he grabs it. Like, we had to practice that a few times, especially considering that door automatically locks from the outside because it's the exterior door of the apartment building. So we had to time it just so to make sure that the knob would turn right. Everyone kind of, all coming in on me and it feeling very claustrophobic and like the walls are closing in. It was a scene that I had in my head, and I still, all these years, feel like we really did nail that scene. Some of the dialogue, I did, looking back, I did still play kind of keep away with some of the dialogue, and for the deliberate purpose of keeping things somewhat vague rather than trying to make them feel natural. And I don't know what I would have changed, but I still feel like it was effective and like it hit the beats that I was aiming for. Because really the big major through line of the first 50 episodes of the show is Database having his big questions about the nature of his reality and the nature of his identity. And a lot of that was driven by myself not really knowing what I was doing with my life. When I started this show, I was somebody who, I had 2 bachelor's degrees from a good college. I had previously been in an accelerated PhD program, and 3.5 years, almost 4 years after graduating, I was selling knives door to door with alongside college students and some high schoolers even. Like, that was the kind of job that I was able to get in that economy, and it really kind of ate away at my sense of self. I had this feeling like this is not what the world's supposed to be. That thing that a lot of millennials dealt with, I think, following the 2008 economic crisis, that we felt like, oh, you go to school, you do well, you get a good job. And that wasn't what the world was for me when I graduated. And it wasn't that way for a number of years. And so that did really kind of eat away at my sense of how the world works and who I was. And this series was sort of an exploration of that. And this episode was sort of that coming to a head of, focusing so much on not on, whether on how much of his reality was real, and now when actually finally faced with that, just shattering his sense of personal identity. And that's the sort of thing you're able to do when you're, exploring a character, sort of created by, centered around yourself and your own experiences. So how I feel about the 30th anniversary, I have no clue what's coming for the 30th anniversary. I'm hoping for good things. But, at this point, I don't even know what the show is going to be. We still don't know whether the relationship with Toei is actually going to continue or not. We still don't know if they're going to continue to be live action, animated, what's going on with this Jonathan Entwistle universe, whether it's going to be a movie. I have no idea. And I don't want this to be like, oh, you know, with regards to how, you know, school can or can't make you feel, it is something beyond that. You know, it took me a while to recognize that it wasn't, you know, really a personal failing or anything like that. There were systemic issues in the world around me that I wasn't recognizing up until, you know, I had a chance to see them. To a certain extent, experience them for myself in terms of how our economic system works and how fragile it actually is, and um, how rough it can be for a lot of people. Because I've always recognized that as rough as I had it, I always knew that I was still at an advantage to most. And that's one of the reasons that I do try to occasionally get involved in social causes when I can, because I know that I couldn't find a steady job for years following graduation with a good education and a good work ethic. You know, it's not like I'm not a hard worker. Like, you know how much work went into making this show. You know, I had nothing but positive feedback from anyone I'd worked with on a lot of different things. And yet I was functionally, in terms of tax purposes and other income purposes, I was functionally below the poverty line for a while there. I didn't have health insurance. I got medical care at a local clinic where the sliding scale put me at 0 because I had such a low income at the time. It was a rough time. You know, I'm obviously in a much better scenario now. You know, time has paid off for me. I think a lot of that was taking the time to do this show and getting myself into a much better headspace and being able to express myself in a way that felt honest and personal, which Power Reviews is, as much as it is this nerdy deep dive into a children's franchise. It's a children's franchise that has been a major part of my identity, and being able to explore it in this way really helped me turn my life around in a lot of regards. You know, obviously, you know, you look at me now, 8.5 years later, almost 9 years later. I've got a career that is doing well. I'm happy in my job. You know, I have my master's degree now. I've got my teaching certifications. You know, I feel like I'm doing right by my students and being creative as a teacher. I'm in a wonderful marriage. We have a fantastic child. We're hoping to start looking at houses within the next year or so. You know, after the market kind of settles down from the world dealing with the global health crisis, obviously. But it is remarkable how much your life can improve when you are able to embrace who you are and what's important to you. Even if it is something as simple as choosing to make a YouTube series about your favorite TV show. The wonders that having that freedom of expression can do for your mental health are pretty impressive. So, according to MJ, I have a wonderful baby who is refusing to go to bed right now, which is sad. Welcome, Arande. Glad you were able to make it. So, yeah, I was doing Gutko. So, all that said, I know I've gone into a pretty deep dive with this one. This one did sort of stir up a lot of memories, since it was something that the series was really working towards for a while, and we get to have some more fun again in the next couple episodes as we get into our guest co-host arcs. But I think now is a good time to wrap things up. this has been one of our longer streams. But thank you all for joining me. I hope that you all have a wonderful weekend. And before we leave, 3 more equally non-controversial phrases. So, as always, number 1, say it with me, chat. Love is love. Number 2, say it with me, chat. Trans rights are human rights. And number 3, say it with me, chat. Robots are cool. And I could go off on whole different thing with regards to implications of all that, considering this episode. Robots can be cool. They're cool in concept. Execution can sometimes be problematic, I won't lie. There's always caveats. So, all that said, thank you again, all of you, for joining us. And until next time, farewell, Ranger fans, and let the power protect you.